the reality of direct mail is that, the levers that you can pull to make this channel work, they're no different than any other channels. It's not a scary channel. It's targeting, it's messaging, creative, it's frequency.
Hey friends, it's Steve. Want to know how a $5 book lands a $5,000 client? I've recorded a 15-minute video showing you our magnetic author method. It's up now at magneticauthor.co/video. Welcome to the Unstoppable CEO podcast. I'm your host, Steve Gordon, and we've got a phenomenal interview for you today. We're going to go back in time a little bit, and then at the same time, jump ahead to the future. We're going to be talking about some old school marketing with a decidedly modern and tech twist to it. I'm talking with Dave Fink today, and he thinks that the best kept secret in marketing is hiding right where you least expect it, in your mailbox. He's got over a 20-year career where he's generated hundreds of millions of dollars in ad revenue. He's powered some really amazingly viral sensations like Dollar Shave Club, and helped launch celebrity startups with Jessica Simpson and Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, all kinds of people. And now he is the founder and CEO of Postie. And he is out to reinvent direct mail marketing for our current digital world. I've done a little bit of research into what they're doing. I'm really, really excited about it. I'm excited to bring all of his wisdom here to you today. So Dave Fink, welcome to the Unstoppable CEO podcast.
That was a very flattering intro. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm pumped. We were talking before we started, the interview that, I kind of started off in marketing doing a lot of direct mail, and some of the things you guys are doing would have been really handy about 10 or 15 years ago. So I'm pumped to learn more. So how did you get to the point of wanting to start Postie? What led up to it?
Sure. I can give you a little bit of the backstory, but what you just said about wishing there was different technology or better tool set to make your life easier, more performant in the channel. 10, 15 years ago, we hear that all the time. There are two types of clients that we engage with. There are plenty that have never done direct mail because they started their career, their companies launched in a time of deep digital, social, search, programmatic, et cetera. And then there's the other type of clients who are more traditional established brands that spent probably the better part of, in many cases, 15 years trying to migrate more of their budgets into digital because the tooling was better. There was more transparency around performance, at least I thought. So for a while, we can get to that topic of real transparency versus what the big walled gardens want you to think is happening with your ad spend. But it happens all the time. I mean, there was a conversation that we were in a couple of months ago where a marketer at a big financial institution who had stood up a 60, 70 million piece a year direct mail program about 15 years ago said exactly that. Like when I think about, this is me quoting him, when he thought about, how his hair was on fire and he's running around dealing with all sorts of vendors and trying to make sense, of Excel spreadsheets and CSV data dumps and whatnot. Yep. And still was able to get value from the channel. He only wished that there were, the same technology capabilities that we have in digital were available in direct mail. And that's been our philosophy here. How I got here really organically. So, the vast majority of my career, really almost exclusively up until launching Postie, I was a digital guy. I was one of those people that started my career in 1999, and it was the coming of age of Web 1.0, and we were out in the world learning and prophesizing about how digital was this new direct to consumer playground, that everything was measurable, that it was easy to test, and you could actually understand what's going on with your conversations with direct consumers. And I remember having lots of conversations with big traditional retailers and CPG brands, where we'd call in and we'd ask the person that answered the phone, hey, who handles your digital marketing? And they'd be dumbfounded. They'd go through their directory, but there's nobody with that title. And so we'd have to kind of figure out like, who's the person at that company trying to, figure out digital, who would be willing to take a call with us. Fast forward to, today, and really for us, call it 6 years ago when we launched Postie, the adage of, no one ever got, fired for buying TV advertising, now became nobody got fired for buying Facebook. It was just the default way you allocated your media budget in most cases. And that caused a lot of pain. I mean, one, I think there's no shortage of awareness right now of kind of the ethics behind how Facebook runs their company. And they're certainly not in business to cater to the advertiser. They've proven they're not really in business to cater to the consumer either. They're really catering to Wall Street. And that's caused all sorts of pain points. But when you look at supply and demand, ad rates are higher than ever before. Consumer engagement is on kind of really the Facebook stack is lower than ever before. The value of customers acquired through Facebook, at least when you start hitting scale, worse than ever. And so you're paying more to acquire less valuable customers with much more noise. You just have really good data and really good tools that you can use. And so for us, we saw those trend lines, and we knew that the brands that we were involved with were in trouble if we couldn't figure out other ways to engage consumers, take back more control over our marketing stack, but do so in a controlled, quantitative, addressable way. And so for us, we started looking at a bunch of digital channels. What else is out there? And 6 years ago, there was no TikTok. Snap was, an interesting tool that kids were using, but there was no real ads platform at that point. And channels like Twitter and Tumblr and even programmatic was, kind of limited in the value that they provided, and in some cases the scale. And so we spent more time offline. And offline, direct mail is the biggest quantitative channel. It's the biggest addressable channel. Everyone with an address is reachable. There's interesting first-party and third-party data that can be used in similar ways to make more predictive decisions of where you should allocate budget. You're able to speak uniquely to different individuals and different segments. You're able to gain insights to what's working through many forms of direct measurement. And those are really great qualities. When we set out to, engage in the channel, it was a walk down memory lane. Like, it's the same vendor stack. It was the same long lead times. It was the same complexity around execution. It was the same, do it yourself, hands-on approach to targeting and measurement that just felt so antiquated. And so for us, it was a matter of like, well, hey, I wonder if it's possible to port over all of the technology that we've built and used and come to rely on in digital channels to this really scalable performant channel in direct mail. And if we did that, could we get brands off of Facebook, or at least reallocating their media mix so that they're more in control and aren't so stressed out all the time. So that was really the story. Super authentic, super organic, just trying to solve a pain point that we had as marketers.
So talk a little bit about now what you've created in terms of, like, thinking back to the last big direct mail campaign I did, which was about 3 years ago that I was involved in. And it was exactly what you talked about. It's totally chaotic. All these different vendors that we're trying to coordinate, trying to make sure we've got the right list, and we've scrubbed it and we've cleaned it and we've done all this stuff, and then get tracking in place. And it was a multi-step campaign, and we want to know how each step is performing, which one is making the difference. I mean, it's incredible. People, if you've not done it before, I don't think people really understand the complexity involved. And for those who have done it, they shudder sometimes at the thought of having to do it again.
For sure. I mean, look, there are definitely a handful of folks out there that enjoy making the soup themselves. They want to grow the vegetables. They want to, understand, crop cycles. They want to chop the vegetables. They want to go and, shape the handles on their steel knives. They want to chop down a tree and build a cutting board that they can use, and they want to cook it all because that's something that is intellectually challenging to them. But most people don't have time in their day for that, and they want to eat delicious soup or drink. I don't know if you eat or drink soup. I guess that's maybe for the next podcast. But so most of us don't have time. Like the expectation for what we're accomplishing in our day has gotten bonkers, and that's because there's more technology, and the expectation that we're always on in our jobs, or very frequently on, and that we have quick response times and the ability to make very, very fast decisions, almost instinctual decisions on really complicated things. That's the reality with which we live in. And so, direct mail is one of those channels that there's a tremendous amount of value. But like you said, it really is, the idea, of taking out a cookbook or even deciding what cookbook to use, and then following step-by-step instructions and realizing you don't even understand how to convert, certain measurements and all those things that could go with trying to put together a recipe. So, what we've built at Postie really is this idea of taking a look at kind of the core three buckets of requirements in order to execute any addressable or quantitative marketing campaign. And, when we kind of whittle that down to kind of the core three buckets, it's step one is measurement, step one is targeting. And so, when you think about what's possible in programmatic, when you think about what's possible in email or certainly social or search, our ability to be to leverage kind of insights and knowledge to make really good decisions on who we want to allocate marketing budgets to, how we want to engage with them. That's it's made us all much smarter and much more efficient, and we've been able to build our businesses faster. So that's step one. So the second bucket is execution, and that's kind of the piece I think that you were talking about, which is this idea of in digital, we have these ad servers, and we can log on and we can upload, creatives, and we can set up and execute, relatively, complicated ad campaigns with, in 5 minutes with a series of screens and user interfaces. Helps us, translate really complicated ideas from our brain or from, our kind of our ideation sessions into real world execution. That doesn't exist or hadn't existed in direct mail. And then the third piece becomes measurement. And so if you're talking about the true value of kind of what the evolution of digital has presented, that really direct mail had always offered, it's the ability not just to be highly targeted and insightful with who you're engaging with your messaging, with your ads, with your budgets. It's not just about being fast and dynamic in your execution or automated even, but it's also then understanding who's engaging, what tests, what hypotheses are actually driving the results, and then taking that that learning and being more efficient with your next cycle of optimizations. So again, just to reiterate, what we set out to accomplish was building a channel management or ad serving solution to make direct mail behave the way that digital channels do, making it easier and more performant. And really, everything that we build from a technology perspective is focused on either providing better targeting, simpler execution, or cleaner measurement. We do those three things, and all of a sudden, the execution of this channel is no different than any digital channel. Difference is you potentially get more performance. It's not a walled garden. Every advertiser can have more control over a bigger piece of their marketing budget. And as we see, because as I mentioned, everything that's done on the Postie platform is measurable, the channel is highly performing.
Yeah, and I think that's the piece that most people don't realize with direct mail. I think there's so much being pushed in the digital realm that we forget that direct mail just flat works really well. And it works particularly, in my experience, with higher end, harder to reach buyers. The people that are very difficult to get to online are relatively easily accessible in their mailbox?
Yeah, I think the way that I would frame that is there's a wide range of businesses, services, products that are out there, and one of the kind of spectrums that I think needs to be appreciated by really the marketer, the business owner themselves, is that there's what I would call consideration, and there's high consideration products, and those are things like buying a home, a car, vacationing, investment decisions, and then there's light consideration purchasing decision, consumer decision. That's like, which flavor gum do I buy, and what candy do I buy for Halloween to hand out, and so I think that you take that piece, and then you take the other piece of what the average order value is, or the lifetime value of a customer is, and you can really quickly kind of build your decision tree on what channels are best or are likely to be most valuable for that business. And so I think the businesses that you're talking about are high consideration, oftentimes more on the higher average order value or lifetime value spectrum, where it is harder to convince someone to buy your product or service. Those businesses we found, they're almost like slam dunks. Like it just, they like, as challenging as it may be to get someone to convert through a fickle newsfeed ad or a viral type ad, the advantage of those businesses is that they have a lot of margin per transaction to work with. So they have the ability to leverage channels that require more budget or are maybe more expensive on a per reach basis. And I look at that as a huge advantage because, if you're selling $19 t-shirts, you're pretty limited from a, average order value or expected lifetime value of what channels you can even, afford, not because they can't be performant, but like just the cost of reaching individuals. Direct mail is a channel where it costs a little bit more to reach each individual. The conversion rate typically offsets that. And all of a sudden, it opens up a channel that can be highly effective, for, again, those high consideration, hard to convert categories. With that being said, we also, I think the piece where we were most surprised at is even for the lower consideration categories, a bit more of the maybe not impulsive type purchase products, but decisions that aren't as heavy, aren't taking 6 months to make, like a home purchase, vacation planning, automobile purchase, etc. The conversion rates can be so outstanding because as an engagement tool, it is so effective, it is so real, it's so influential that it really does drive performance for a wide range of advertisers and brands.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the vast majority of the people who listen to our podcast are in that category of they're selling something pretty expensive, usually a complicated service that requires, as you say, a lot of consideration. What are some of the things that a business like that should be paying attention to if they go, I've listened to this, I want to kind of walk down this path and try direct mail. Maybe I haven't done it before. What are a few of the things they should really kind of be aware of?
Sure. First and foremost, I would say the key is like take a deep breath, right? This is the reality of direct mail is that the levers that you can pull to make this channel work, they're no different than any other channels. It's not a scary channel. It's targeting, it's messaging, creative, it's frequency. Like those are the three things. It's no different than launching a Facebook campaign or an Instagram campaign or a LinkedIn campaign or a programmatic or an email campaign. Those are the three things. As marketers or business owners, you have a ton of insight already. And some of those are kind of anecdotal insights that you've captured along the way. And some of those are data-driven insights from measurement from campaigns that you've run in other measurable channels. You want to put that to work, right? The idea is that not that you're going to get everything perfect out of the gate in any channel, but the idea of having the ability to eliminate as much of the risk up front and find the fastest and most efficient path to profitable advertising campaigns is the goal. So when you're going to start in direct mail or any other channel, one of the exercises that we do with new clients all the time is that, they say like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to design for direct mail. And we smile like, look, same consumers, same brand. You want to be authentic. You don't want to change your, the messaging and the brand position. You want to, think about the storytelling that has worked for you and that does work for you. And let's do a couple exercises. And so if the exercises we typically do are, let's go onto your Instagram page, look at your organic content and see what posts are most engaged or getting the highest engagement levels. Let's just get a sense for it. Is the knowledge that you or the insight that you're bringing to this conversation consistent with what's actually happening in the real world? It's a really inexpensive way to get a sense on, what type of creative should we be using? Imagery that's lifestyle based or product based, or should we be using models, or should we be tailoring our messaging and our creative to specific regions or segments in our consumer base? Step two would be, let's look at the emails that get the highest click-through rates. Most businesses are leveraging email really effectively, or at least have a ton of insights into it. And just take a minute. Let's take a look over the last year. What are the top 10 performing emails? Is there any consistency there, and what can we learn that we can apply to our direct mail strategy? And you can do the same thing with any other paid channel, programmatic, retargeting, traditional display. And if you start there, all you're trying to do is think about, okay, now we have a different canvas. We're starting with a postcard or a letter or, a folded piece. Now we have this canvas. How do we translate what we just saw, is effective for our brand already, so that when we start, we're out in the world, not guessing, but starting from a position of strength. That's really step one. Step two then becomes the targeting, which is most businesses have first party data. It's liquid gold, right? You have customers, you have leads that convert, you have leads that didn't convert. At least on Postie, but the direct mail channel does allow for you to unlock knowledge and insights into what makes those segments different. What makes a high LTV segment different from a low LTV segment? What has the demographics or behavioral insights on people that have converted the last 30 or 60 days look different than people who converted a year ago? Anything that we can learn from that? And then how do you unlock the power of using that data for prediction so that you can target better? That stuff is complicated and hard. It takes big structural data engineering and machine learning. That's the stuff that we've worked really hard to bring to the direct mail space that historically has been not really possible or very limited in the type of modeling you can do. But again, the theme is the same, which is chances are, if you're looking at a new growth channel, you have some growth channels that are working, and you're gonna take a deep breath, not get nervous about direct mail, and you're gonna look and say, how can we apply everything that we know that's working with our business or that hasn't worked with our business to get in the game most effectively, and how do we unlock the power of our data for better targeting out of the gate, rather than to kind of luck our way into it. That's the game.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds so much simpler. I mean, even on the targeting side, in the old days, you would look at targeting, and I mean, you would spend hours with list brokers trying to figure out, what do you have? What level of list is this? Are we dealing with buyers? Are we dealing with respondents? There was a lot of complexity to sort of trying to figure that out. And, and every list was a bit of a gamble the first time you used it to see if it was going to work.
And limited too, like that's like that brand marketing teams in the past, I would always push them to stay on top of, changing, patterns in consumer behavior, changing opportunities in the media landscape. Obviously, in the digital world, there's lots of new channels. And when we would kind of meet up and decide how we were going to allocate the portion of our budget that we set aside for testing something new, one of the requirements was like, hey, this channel looks amazing. How scalable is it? Meaning, like, it's going to take time and energy and some risk to test anything new. if this does work, is there scale behind it? And if so, it's worth it. If there's not scale behind it, probably not worth it. And one of the challenges with that old world of list rental, which look, even in the Web 1.0 world, that's how email lists were bought.
Right.
The risk is that they're all limited, right? So you can go and buy the, Marie Claire subscriber list, but it might be 200,000 or 400,000 names in total. And so you test that list, it works, and then you get a couple bites of the apple over the next year or two until that list no longer performs. The difference between what's happened in digital really led, again, even though we talked about some of the challenge with Facebook, like the innovation, the way that they understand about using scale and data to drive targeting and performance, it's a different approach. It's looking and saying, how do you get into media channels that that allow you to reach the big, scalable, addressable markets, way bigger than you have budget to spend into, and then how do you use data, machine learning, modern mathematics, and technology to identify the individuals within that entire addressable market that are most likely to be responsive or high quality customers. There aren't that many channels yet that are applying that kind of depth of targeting. Certainly Facebook's doing it, Google's doing it. I think TikTok is trying to do it now. Programmatic in many ways is trying to do it. But direct mail is a channel that in theory has been doing it since the invention of data collection. Right. It just hasn't yet caught up to where digital has gotten over the last 20 years. And now, businesses like Postie are closing that gap really fast.
Yeah. Well, and much needed too. So for someone listening to this and they've got some marketing budget, maybe they've been advertising, on Facebook or Google or somewhere, and they want to get into direct mail, who's kind of a good fit for working with you guys, and how do they get started?
Yeah, so it's going to depend on the scale of the business and the type of budget that's allocated. We work with a wide range of advertisers, but they kind of start at kind of mid-market, levels of scale where they're putting tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to work because they're spending into 10, 20, $30 million a year marketing budgets. And it's just the area right now that we have expertise in and a service layer to handle. If you're an advertiser listening that kind of falls into that bucket, I would highly encourage you to look at solutions like Postie, because again, it's the ability to run the channel in a way that feels very comfortable and familiar. You're able to integrate with the rest of your media stack. You're able to deploy and learn very fast so that you reduce the kind of wasted budget as you're spinning up a new channel, and you can get to scale quickly. If you're a smaller brand, someone who wants to get in this channel, is maybe more niche or just a little bit early on your journey, then it is a bit of a challenge. I don't know of that many solutions out there that at this point yet are bringing the same kind of capabilities that you're getting on Facebook and Google yet. I suspect there will be businesses, and we may be one of them, that is able to work towards the more SMB or niche segments over time. I certainly hope we get there. But I think that the key would still be thinking about how you find a partner that A, specializes in your level of scale, B, brings the ability to help you with targeting in a more modern approach. The type of partners you want to look for. Those partners are going to ask you about your existing insights, your existing first party data. They're not going to walk you in, like you said, to list brokers and play the list rental game. They're actually building predictive strategies, unlocking the knowledge and assets that you currently have. And from a creative perspective, you don't need anyone. You need a designer, of course, but you don't need a fancy agency to get started. You need to spend a few minutes looking at what's working in your other channels and providing guidance to your designer to to adapt those creatives into the aspect ratio of a postcard or a folded piece or a letter. The last piece I would say is that regardless of whether you're working with a platform like Postie that can provide integrated measurement, or you're executing more yourself or through an agency, measurement matters. This is a channel that provides that. And every brand has a way to measure. In our world, it's all done through connecting the data pipes so that the same conversion data that's flowing into Google Analytics or your ad server can flow into your Postie account, and you can get automated, really clean measurement. But you don't need to be that sophisticated initially. You do need the ability to understand how you're going to evaluate success from failure, and that's probably again another segment on your show. It's a pretty deep conversation.
That is a deep conversation, yes. Well, that's awesome. So where can people find out more about Postie? Where can they check things out?
Sure. So we work really hard at publishing good content on our website. So postie.com, postie.com. And I'm trust you'll put that in your show notes as well. Make it easy for people to find. There's lots of case studies. There's lots of tactical information. And if you're looking to engage and learn more about how we might be a partner for you, there's a really easy request a demo form right there on the website. If you have specific questions for me, my platform of choice right now is LinkedIn Messenger. And so you can just find me. David L. Fink is my handle. If you search Dave Fink and Postie, you'll find me as well. And it's an easy way for us to communicate, because it also allows me to see a little bit about your background, to know who I'm talking to, and can make sure I come into the conversation with a little bit of knowledge as well, just like we do with our marketing campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dave, this has been great. Thanks so much for investing some time with me today and sharing some of your wisdom. We'll link all of that up in the show notes. And I think this is it's a fantastic trend, for marketing going forward. So I'm very excited.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed the conversation.